Okay guys, so I already got this side done and all buttoned up. You can see the new shiny bolts there. And then I also replaced the sway bar linkage because it was blown. I had no idea what all the tools I needed, but if we come over here, we'll see why we're doing it. So the shock is blown. And if you take this to the shop, they're gonna wanna charge you like $1,000 in labor and probably $500–600 in parts. I'm repairing this for about $430 counting tax. So we did some modifications. We cut the end of the bolt off already. And so that way this one will actually go up from the bottom. That one will go up from the top like it's supposed to. And then of course the top would be just fine. We have a few different socket sizes and we can't reuse the hardware here. And that's actually pretty close to where the original one was, but I just don't like how close that is because I do take this off-road. So I did cut a little bit more clearance right there just to make it ever so much slightly better in that scenario. Anyway, let me get this set up and you guys can kind of watch as I go along. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is drop the sway bar linkage. Now we replaced the other side, so we're just gonna go ahead and replace this side as well. And this has already been replaced once. The other side was bad. This one is not bad, but we're just gonna go ahead and do both at the same time. So this is the brand Moog. It is a 15 on top, 16 on bottom. I don't remember what stock was because I took those off some time ago. But replacing your sway bar linkage is really quite simple. Just comes off like that. And then if this is the first time you're taking it off, you do kind of want to pay attention to how this all kind of goes together. So right here, you have a, actually I'm not going to try to, just separated. So you have a bushing and then a bottom lock nut and washer combo. They just kind of nest together. Then you got all this here. That's not going to come out right this second. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drop this over here, and that's going to drop all that out from the bottom. And I should probably note, I am not a mechanic. This is a shade tree. Actually, we are doing it underneath a literal tree. See? So this is Shade Tree Mechanic 101. This is not the way Chevy, Ford, Dodge, or anyone at the dealership would do it, but the dealership would want to take you for a lot of money. Okay, so now we got to figure out what ones we need here. I'm probably going to cut that section out because I look like an idiot. I'm not prepared. Okay, it's that one. Okay, so on the bottom of the original manufacturer shock towers, it's going to be a 5/16, I believe. No, 5/8. And I'm just using a Milwaukee bit driver to break these loose. They're not on very tight. They're not on very tight, so they come out quite quick and easy and painless. We're not reusing these, so just drop them off to the side. Don't have to keep track of them. There you go. Okay, so now we're back over on this side. So now that this has dropped, we can now move it down. As you can see, it's no longer connected here. We could easily pull this up, and I can show you all the components that go to this. So you have a top bushing piece with a metal washer that goes up against the bolt shoulder up here. Then you will have a bushing like this. This goes up here. Then you got to put a washer, and that will nestle up inside that little cavity up there. Then you got your spacer, and then you would have another metal bushing that goes up against the spacer, and then you have that the plastic bushing, and then you have the bottom nut. Real simple. But if you haven't done it before, easy to make a mistake and then not know how that's supposed to go on. All right, so now we're looking into the engine bay. That's the top of the strut tower, shock tower, whatever you want to call it. We got 3 bolts up there, and this is going to be a size 18, and we just zip these off. Again, we're not reusing these bolts, so we don't need to save them. Just put those out of the way. And then the last one, and you'll see that this will actually drop down and out of the way. Along with our socket. Not like we needed that. All right, now that we got the strut tower dropped out, we just got to pull it up and out of the top. It is a little bit on the heavy side, so just kind of get close to it. And you just bring it right up out the top, like so. Now this, I don't know if this is in shot. Yeah, this is. So, okay, so this spring here is under tension. You can just replace the shock and reuse this, but I don't recommend doing that if you're not a full-fledged shop and you're not doing it underneath your literal tree like I am. And I'm rapidly losing that shade. So we're just gonna replace the whole unit so we don't have to mess with that. And this whole unit is about $200 or $400 for each side. Again, it is a little bit on the heavy side, so just kind of get close to it and just lift her in. And then just kind of rested it on the lugs on the bottom, bolt holes up to the top. And then we're just gonna go ahead and set the bolts. So that way we have those in there. Now remember, we did shorten one of the bolts and one of the ones are long. Okay, so the long bolt we're going to put on the other side. Josh shots is on this side. So we're gonna take this short one and we're gonna find the hole from the bottom eventually. Put it up in. Now you probably don't need to shorten it. I decided to shorten the bolt a little bit. Now it is a little tight, but we can fix that by using some sockets. There's the 15. And then we need that one. So what we'll do is put the box on top and then use this one right here to run that bolt in. It would help if I had it on tight and not loosen. So we don't want it necessarily tight right this second. So we'll just leave it loose. Okay, on this side, we have plenty of room that we can drop it through the top. Now, you do have to move it around a little bit. That's why we leave the other side loose. And we just go ahead and put the nut on. And we'll just run that up a little bit, much like we did on the other side. I'm trying to put my hands in awkward ways so you guys could have good visibility. Of course, your hand wouldn't go through this way, but we're gonna make it work. There we go. And these are lock washers. And we're gonna leave it a little bit on the loose side. All right, so now before we get too far, we're gonna go ahead and throw the new sway bar bushings on. So the way that they come in the package, there are instructions, I think. There's a piece of paper. I've never read it. I just kind of figure it out. So see, this is the little piece of paper you get. I have no idea what it says. So again, here you got the 3 washers like I was explaining before, and then you got 4 bushings, and then you have the bottom washer lock nut. So we're gonna go ahead and take all those off. One goes on top, so you have a washer up against the stud, the bushing, then that just drops down, and we put it off to this side. That just makes it easier. Then we have another bushing. We put a washer in it, like so. And then this one runs up like that, so that when you tighten it down, those two will squish. Now you take the spacer. Put it in, and then we take another washer, put it on, bushing, seat it in, see? And then we just set it in there like that. Now with this, we just simply go much kind of like that. Done. And then it goes in like that. So we'll just get that started. But we're not going to tighten this up until after we have all the other bolts tight. So now we go back up to the top. Okay, so these are going to be 15s as well. So we just do these on by hand first, get them started so we don't drop them. This side is a little bit easier to get to than the other side, but the other side is not that difficult. And we're not going to tighten these straight off hand. We're going to just run the nuts down and bring it up into the seat of the shock tower. There's probably a proper way to align it, but you know what? This is good enough for government work. So we're going to make sure we have it in tighten. We're going to run some of these nuts down. And after a couple weeks, you're going to want to check these to make sure they're still tight. You see the shock will find its home as you tighten it down like this. So you just kind of go around, and it just keeps pulling it up. Now we're tightening it down all the way. The torque spec is just tight. Good enough. Okay, so right here, again, very similar process. But these ones, we could just pretty much just go straight to tight. So there's that one, and we'll get the one on the back side. And then we'll check this one, make sure it's tight. It is. There you go. Now we're back. Hold up. Now we're back to this side. And now what we're going to do is tighten up the sway bar link. Now that we have it all where we kind of want everything. So we have to use a 16 on the bottom, 15 on top. Now this one, you don't tighten to the ball, to the end of the world. So I want a little bit of a squish. something about that. And that's good enough. And that is how you replace the shock tower and the sway bar, or not the shock tower, the strut and shock. And then that's also how you replace the sway bar linkage. Now, you could pull or push the CV axle out to put both of these nuts upside down, but the original nut was pretty close to the drive shaft. I have more clearance now because we did cut that one down just a little bit, but I would prefer if that nut was upside down the other way. But that also makes it easier. But that also makes it easier to take that nut out if we ever needed to without having to worry about trying to remove the drive shaft. So that is just the easy way, the redneck way, the literal shade tree way of doing this repair and saving $1,000 to like $1,200 quite easy. I'm going to put some WD-40 on these bushings. So up there, down there, there, and there. And I have a grease gun that I will grease up these zerks right here. There's one there, and then there's none up here. And then I don't know if there's one down there. Nope, there isn't. So I haven't replaced those yet. These ones I have replaced, and I always replace those with grease zerks. So that's it. This repair is done. Thank you for watching. Comment, like, rate, and subscribe, and tell me how bad I did it.